Okay, so in this video what we're going to be doing is talking about drafting a cone with a cut section. As you can see here, the cone itself is being cut by a simply inclined plane. Now there's two different methods of drawing this, which we're both going to draft now, just so you can get to grips with both the methods. One's going to basically use horizontal sections cutting through the cone itself to form this new cut section, and the other basically method that we're going to be using is using generators along the surface of the cone, which we're going to use to form this surface as well. So as you can see, what I have here is basically an elevation, a plan, and our cutting plane, which is traveling through this object. Now just to identify our traces, first of all, let's call this our vertical trace, and this is going to be our horizontal here trace. So you can see our vertical trace is traveling down here in our elevation, and in our plan you can see our horizontal trace which is traveling through here. Okay, now you know this is simply inclined because as you can see, your horizontal trace here is lying flat, or the horizontal plane as traveling perpendicular to the XY line itself, while in our elevation here our vertical trace is traveling up at this angle here, and you can see that's just simply inclined, so it's inclined to one of the planes. Now we'll draw in the same over here. So this is our vertical trace and this is our horizontal trace. Now we're going to start off over here using our generator method. So as you can see here, what we can see is our apex. So I'm just going to put that in. This is our apex here, and our apex is also below here, right there. Now generators, which you all should be familiar by now with, are basically lines that travel along that surface from the apex down towards the base circle itself. The base circle here is represented as a line, and it's represented as this circle here. And our apex, like I said before, is this point where all the generators travel up towards, where they converge, as well as you can see it here. So what I'm going to need to do first of all is form a few of these generators. And now just with a 3D model, I just kind of want to show you what the generators look like as it lies on the surface. So what we're going to have to do is form a few different ones. Now they could be formed randomly, but I like to have them evenly spaced out, so I like to use my 60-30 degree set square, like so. Now, like I always point out, my lines are going to be a bit darker than you'll want to do for your drawing. The reason that I like to do them a bit darker is because it's easy to see here on camera. You know yourself what lines should be construction lines and kept nice and light. Okay, so now that we have our different generators brought here in our plan, we got to also form these generators above here in our elevation. Now all we're going to be basically seeing is this generator here, so actually we'll mark them. So let's call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. I'm just going to call the apex above here 13. Okay. Also I'm going to move these up above. So basically I'm going to have to draw these lines up and form my generators above here in my elevation. You know that all we'll be able to really see from the front face here while we're looking in from this direction is these generators here is 1 to 13, 2 to 13, 3 to 13, 4 to 13, 5 to 13, 6 to 13, 7 to 13. The rest of these generators around the back will be directly behind these generators. So these lines will nearly overlap, but you won't be able to see them because they'll be at the other side of the object. So if I just transfer them up here, like so. I have where they are at the base circle, and now I bring them up to my apex. Like so. Now I want to bring up all my annotations up, so we'll call it this one 1. It's going to be 2 and 12, 2 and 12, 3 and 11, 4 and 10, 5 and 9, 6 and 8, and 7 on the outside there. We're also not going to forget our apex, which I'm number 13 here, so I'll number 13 above. Now what we can do is basically drop down where our intersecting plane is crossing each one of those lines. So you can see here, first of all, our generator 1 to 13. Where is that intersected by our simply inclined plane? You can see it is intersected right here. So what I can do is I can drop that down into my plan and mark that first point. Do the same for the rest of them. So 2 to 13 is here. And now remember, this is also 12 to 13 because they're overlapping. So when I bring it down, I'll mark it on both. We'll mark it in nice and heavy here with dots so you can see clearly where they are. 3 to 13 and 11 to 13. Two next generators. Now the reason I can't take this point here down and straight down here is because you can see that that line, it doesn't show exactly where the intersection is because it is not at an angle where we bring it down so it intersects, so it's actually traveling straight over. But that's alright, we can skip that one. We can come back to the next one, which is 5 to 13, 9 to 13. Drop that straight down. When it intersects here and here. Now this is good, you can see by looking at your points and how it's kind of forming that shape. You can see that it will be kind of tucking in a bit tighter than it did out here because of how the cut is happening above with our simply inclined plane. Now our generators 6 to 13 and 8 to 13, bring them down, mark them off, and now we have our last generator which is 7 to 13 here, and bring that down. Now we have our series of points. What we can do now is basically freehand it in. Try to keep it as smooth as possible. Don't be sketchy where you're going back and over just one continuous line. The longer you're at it, the better you'll get at it. If you're small but out of practice, you might be rusty. Don't worry about it. Just give it your best shot. Like so. And that's basically that completed. Now, if you were doing your own drawing here, I just ensure that this top section which cut off, you'll have all that done construction, so that will be nice and light. And then what you can do afterwards is you can highlight the sections that are left. So highlight this cut here and these few lines here, as well as obviously the circle that you've freehanded in and the outer circle. Don't be worried about the generators, they are just to help you find the different points. You can leave them in light. So now after we've completed basically our generator method, like so, what we can do next is our horizontal sections. Again, I'm just going to point out some of the key terminology. It's our apex. As well as that, if you want to point out some other key terminology that we've previously used, such as our generators, I'm just going to highlight one of them for you. Let's say we'll do 5 to 13. There's 5 to 13 here. Now this can be handy in a classroom setting just so that your students can see clearly the different bits of terminology and where they're linked in the drawing. Now we're going to do our horizontal section. So what we're going to do is, just like it says, pick a few different horizontal sections to cut through above here in our elevation. Obviously this is our horizontal plane we're looking at below here, but if we have horizontal sections which are, let's say, parallel with the horizontal plane itself, they'll be formed as lines that are traveling through here, which are going to be parallel with your XY line. So there's two obvious ones we'll do, which are the two extreme ones, which is here and here, where the simply inclined plane cuts through. So in this one, and I'm just going to bring them points down first. Call this point 1 and this point 2. I'm going to bring them down. Now that I have my section cut, you can imagine if you were, like, say, taking off a top section here as you're cutting straight in, what you'll be left with is basically a little circle. So we're basically going to form this circle, which this line represents, down here in our plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down the edge of it like so, down to it hits below here, get my compass and form my circle, that cut section, like so. And then where the 2 comes down and intersects, which should be the extreme end of it, will be here. So that will be 2, and then we'll have 1 intersects, so we'll have to bring down that circle as well. Where 1 drops straight down to the same point here, so we can call that 1. Okay, now you can see how 2 here is similar to our extreme one over here, there, as well as 1 is similar to where we had this point drop down over here. Okay, now these are identical, so it should form the exact same shape as here, just a different method to find points on that particular curve itself to form it. So we have 2 of our points, so we need to just form a few more generators. I'm going to keep it nice and simple. You can do as many as you want. The more you have, the more accurate it is. I'm just going to put 2 extra ones. 1, let's say here, and up here. Let's go cut through here at, let's call point 3, and call this one point 4. Drop and go 1 more, just have that extra point. Call it 5. I'm going to bring down 3 first. So again, I'm going to have to form that circle, so where the cut section has gone through. Drop that down. Draw the circle. Bring down where the point is. Now where 3 hits, it's going to hit in 2 different sections. So 3 down, that's this circle. That'll hit here, and it will hit here. So there and there. So we'll call him 3 because he's the one face yes. So if you're looking in this side, that's where 3 would be. And we'll just call him as well /6 and call this one 6. Let's give him /7/8. Now we'll do the same one for this one. Bring down that. Form my circle again. Him. Bring 5 and 8 down. 5 and 8 hits will be here, here. That's going to be 5, and this is going to be 8, and we just have 4 and 7 to bring down now. You can see why the numbering is coming in very handy now when there's a lot of lines. Just be very careful that you don't mark it on the wrong line. So let's say 4 and 7 here, dropping straight 7, dropping straight down. This circle here is this circle 7, where that comes down and hits there and here. So now we have 4 and 7. So what we can do is join in all our different points. Again, our freehand curve. There you go. So you have your 2 different methods to find the cut section. Obviously, the more, I suppose, generators you use here, or the more cut section you use, the more points you have to work off of to get it, how could you say, closer to the actual solution itself. I'd reckon use a few generators anyway, enough to get the basic curve itself. So 3 or 4 cut sections would do fine. The same here for the generators. I just use your 60-30. That'll provide enough generators to form a good enough solution. As well as that, depending on the size of your drawing itself, the scale of it, if it's a larger scale, you can get away with putting in more generators without getting so confusing so quickly. But for the sake of getting the principle across, as many generators and cut sections I've included here will be enough to satisfy the need.